The Einstein and his life. The man who changed the concept of physics. Albert Einstein's story is one of creativity and freedom. He believed there was harmony in the universe, and science had the duty to discover it. Einstein is most famous for the general theory of relativity, which describes the interplay between matter, motion, and energy. This theory was a product of a thought experiment rather than a laboratory experiment. Einstein's scientific quest began in 1895 when he was 16 years old. For the next 3 decades, he would be known as a revolutionary. In 1925, he reached a turning point in his career and began questioning the quantum revolution he helped launch. This resistance continued until he died in 1955. Politically, he challenged the excessive control of the state and the centralization of authority. He was a pacifist and resisted nationalism, militarism, and any form of herd mentality. He became famous for his accurate prediction of the 1919 eclipse. He was kind, humble, and gentle, but detached from his family. For example, 17 years after his divorce from his wife, Mileva Maric, he won the Nobel Prize for Physics and gave the prize money to her as promised before the divorce. This summary shines a light on a man's private and public life whose discoveries shaped the modern era. Einstein's life and work encourage us to seek factual evidence that either confirms or debunks general theories and retains our childlike capacity for wonder. We will explore the benefits of developing the ability to think outside the box and stay focused against all odds to leave an imprint on the sands of time. Stay tuned to discover more about a challenger of conventional wisdom with a curious mind second to none. A tale of youth and curiosity. Einstein's development as a child was slow. He didn't use words until he was over 2 years old and had to practice everything before speaking aloud. He thought in pictures and later described them in words. His parents were of Jewish descent and lived in the rural villages of Swabia in southwestern Germany. His family valued education and were irreligious. This background nurtured independent thinking in Albert. His father, Hermann, was born in the Swabian village of Bukow in 1847. His mother, Pauline Koch, was 11 years younger than his father, but had a strong personality that matched his father's passivity. Albert was born in Ulm on March 14, 1879 at 11:30 a.m. A year later, the family moved to Munich. His only sibling, Maria, called Maya, was born in November 1881, and they grew to become soulmates. He was a loner and spent more time meditating than playing games with his cousins and other children that often visited their backyard. He relished puzzles and the erection of complex structures with his toy building set. He had temper tantrums, which he outgrew later in life. In childhood, he was fascinated with a compass whose needle was controlled by an invisible field force. Einstein later stated that this experience made a lasting impression on him. He became devoted to field theories. The boy never liked to cram. He considered mathematical problems as something that he could apply in everyday life. And although he knew how to compose complex equations, for him, they were primarily a way to designate the magic of nature. Einstein showed an inclination to systematize rather than the ability to empathize growing up. He loved music and played the violin often. Music was an integral part of Einstein's thinking process. He had a special liking for Mozart. To him, music was a reflection of the harmony of the universe. His admiration of nature, love for music, and perception of God were intertwined. He attended a Catholic school and suffered anti-Semitic attacks from his colleagues. This hostile behavior reinforced Einstein's sense of being an outsider. Einstein was a high flyer in school. When he was 10, his family hosted a poor medical student, Max Talmud, on Thursdays. Talmud brought science books on those visits, which caught Einstein's attention. All great discoveries start with imagination and audacity. Albert's acquaintance with science began with a 21-volume encyclopedia of natural science. He first read about the connection between biology and physics in these books.
The fascinating world of knowledge absorbed all the attention of the 10-year-old. Just before his bar mitzvah, the initiation ritual in Judaism at age 12, Albert developed an aversion to religion. For the rest of his life, he steered clear of religious ceremonies and practices. He felt that popular scientific books proved that the stories of the Bible could not be true. Einstein's suspicion of every kind of authority defined his science and social thinking. His contrarian attitude affected his studies at a Munich gymnasium called the Leopold Gymnasium. While he was struggling with the authorities in school, his father's business collapsed. It led into depression. He found a way to leave school in the autumn of 1994 and went to Pavia, Italy, where his family had relocated. He decided to study independently to prepare for admission to a technical college. Another motivation for leaving the gymnasium was that he didn't want to join the army. He would have been required to do so had he stayed in the school until he was 17. Albert compiled his first scientific work on the investigation of the state of the ether in a magnetic field when he was 16. It is significant because he would later prove the ether assumption wrong. Alas, the young man failed to qualify for the Polytechnic Institute. He spent the next year at a cantonal school in the village of Aarau, which was 25 miles west of Zurich. The school was a perfect fit for Einstein because it practiced Pestalozzi's teaching method. According to this technique, teachers encouraged students to be unique and allowed all options for expressing their thoughts. They did not give the wards ready-made answers, but taught them to conclude. To Einstein, institutions of learning ought to create an unstructured system of education that allows students to disagree with what they are taught and develop their perception of reality. Imagination and creativity should take preference over rote learning in schools. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Did you know? Contrary to popular belief, Einstein didn't struggle with mathematics as a child. Before age 15, he could solve any calculus. Freedom of expression is a basic value. In Aarau, Einstein met the Winterlers, who became his adopted family. The threads of Albert's fate intertwined with this family in various ways. His first romantic relationship was with their daughter. Also, her sister became the wife of his best friend. Einstein's sister married the son of the Winterlers. Einstein scored the second highest grade at the end of his study at the school. Eventually, he gained admission to the Zurich Polytechnic, an institution notable for engineering. Albert planned to become a teacher of the exact sciences. Physics was best for him. However, he often annoyed tutors at the university with his audacity, impatience, and arrogance. He was ahead of the curriculum on his own. He had a friend and accomplice, Marcel Grossman, who was well-versed in mathematics and helped Albert improve his knowledge. Thanks to him, Einstein could compose the general theory of relativity. Together, the friends explored groundbreaking discoveries in physics that professors had not yet taught in standard academic programs. Soon, Albert met the girl who became his first wife. Mileva Maric was his classmate, although she was 3 years older than him. She was one of 5 girls who studied in the specialty of physics and mathematics. Moreover, Mileva was among the first women in Austria-Hungary to receive higher education. Mileva would create an emotional field more powerful than that of anyone else in Einstein's life. The couple were married for 16 years and had 2 sons. Their match seemed made in heaven as they resonated at the same frequency. Albert told his wife that impudence was his guardian angel in the world. To enable imagination, Einstein had to be a nonconformist. Today's society needs to learn from him to create an atmosphere that encourages free thinking. Not everyone will be an Einstein, but we can learn to leave our mark by identifying and improving our strengths. We can understand the universe and how it should be through imagination and wisdom. We need an open mind. More than ever, creativity is vital to compete in an interconnected world. Did you know? The physics professor flunked Einstein on the exam because he ignored instructions and did things his way.
Social norms determine and limit the life of a genius. Einstein had fond memories of his time at the Zurich Polytechnic. However, he would often decry the discipline in the examination system.
He and Marriage were forced to work on a research paper they were not interested in doing. The tutor gave him 4.9, just enough to let him graduate in August 1900. Marriage got a 4.0 and had to stay an additional year. Einstein's family initially resisted his relationship with Marriage. They considered her unattractive and older than Einstein. Moreover, they had already grown fond of his first ex-girlfriend. With time, Albert won them over by being charming and pleasing them. Einstein failed when he attempted to get a job in Zurich citizenship. His former professors resented him for his nonconformist attitude, and his citizenship depended on him holding a permanent job. He had to resort to taking tutoring classes. Mileva Marriage's presence and the theoretical papers he was writing kept him going throughout this time. His first paper had no significant contribution to physics, but he managed to get it published. It was a feat that enhanced his prospect of gaining employment, yet he still couldn't get a job. Fortunately, Albert's friend Marcel Grossmann leveraged his father's relationship with the director of the Swiss Patent Office to get Einstein a job. Eventually, he got his coveted Swiss citizenship, having renounced his German citizenship about 4 years earlier. By May 1901, Mileva Marriage became pregnant after a romantic holiday in Lake Como. Einstein reassured her that he would get a job, even if it had to be in an insurance company to provide a stable home for them. Working as a patent officer was a blessing in disguise. It allowed him to challenge basic assumptions rather than be overly cautious. Also, his role paid him more than a junior professor would make. When Mileva Marriage had the baby, she didn't allow Einstein to look at her because he had not married her. It was considered that Swiss officials should not be seen cohabiting with a lady. Hence, after giving birth, Mileva returned from her parental house to Zurich alone. She left her daughter with her grandparents. The girl died in infancy. A year later, Einstein and Marriage married and soon had 2 sons. Did you know? In 1901, 12% of births in Zurich were illegitimate according to the official statistics. In external resistance, the main thing is not to lose your core. Einstein was nominated for the Nobel Prize in Physics several times during the 1910s. The scientific committee considered the possibility of presenting him with an award for creating the theory of relativity. However, the jury felt there was insufficient experimental evidence for this idea. In subsequent years, several influential scientists renominated Einstein, but it was all in vain. Albert's idea was too revolutionary. Members of the commission did not dare to award it, so they found a compromise. In 1921, Einstein finally received the Nobel Prize, but for his other discovery. The scientist was awarded for the theory of the photoelectric effect. It was undeniable and conclusive. Nevertheless, the text of the award was very generalized, which implied recognition of other merits of the great physicist. The Academy of Sciences clarified that they would evaluate his other works when confirmed and substantiated experimentally. Einstein devoted the traditional speech of the Nobel Prize winner to the theory of relativity, even though he was awarded for his other discovery. The scientist was persecuted and attacked by Nazi organizations that opposed him and tried to organize his murder. In 1931, they published the book 100 Authors Against Einstein. They attributed Albert's works to other scientists and declared him a charlatan. After 1933, Einstein never returned to Germany. He moved to the U.S. and became a professor of physics at the Institute for Advanced Study. As his professional life began to ascend, his personal life took a nosedive. He flirted with his first cousin, Elsa Einstein, and prioritized his trips to scientific conferences across Europe with his lonely wife in Prague. Eventually, he agreed to a separation and eventual divorce. He also developed a distaste for marriage and poured himself completely into science. Einstein's talent and exceptional mind brought him worldwide recognition and fame. He used his authority to call on society for justice and peaceful cooperation between states. Albert received daily letters and always tried to answer them. He even corresponded with curious children. Glory did not make him a less open and sincere person. Einstein remained modest and courteous regardless of his status in society. He consistently opposed the war and the incitement of enmity between people. Did you know? Albert's eldest son became a recognized scientist, while the youngest suffered from schizophrenia and lived in a mental hospital. Albert Einstein lived to be 75 years old. Even in old age, he had a pure and lively mind. In the last year of his life, Einstein felt the imminent death. Albert told people close to him that he had already completed his mission on Earth. He didn't want a magnificent funeral, but to cremate his body and scatter the ashes in the wind near the river. Only 12 people attended the farewell to the scientist, although his death was heartbreaking for thousands of people. Contemporaries remembered Einstein as a curious, friendly, and charming person. He was witty and had a rare sense of humor. Despite the exceptional size of his figure in the world's scientific arena, he was not a snob. He retained modesty and moderate conceit. The physicist knew how to admit his mistakes and could publicly ask for forgiveness when he thought it was right. He explored the world and nature with admiration and reverence. To comprehend their regularity and connection, he overcame traditional thinking, and it radically changed the course of the development of scientific progress. Try this. Einstein's life shows how unconventional thinking and an abhorrence of received wisdom can open the door to what was previously unknown. Make a list of areas where you operate based on received wisdom. Tinker with other possible explanations of what you have accepted as a truism without questioning. Start with something benign and build your capacity to rethink from there. Watch the historical movie Einstein and Eddington, 2008. Read the novel Einstein's Dreams, 1992 by Alan Lightman. Listen to the musical works of Schumann, Hazel, and Lotus. Einstein loved to play them on the violin.